This is a 15 by 7 foot map my wife and I painted in our kids' room. Our hope is that they grow up being curious about the world, and when they read about faraway places and want to know where they are, they can just look up at the map and see Colombia or Indonesia or the Shire. The map's production took about 2 years from start to finish, and you can watch a time-lapse of it here, as well as a cover of Animaniac's Nations of the World here, accounting for various extended pauses such as giving birth.
A project like this could certainly be completed faster, although it was nice that the relaxed pace meant that the aforementioned progeny actually got to contribute, or at least she thought she did. Anyway, here's how we did it.
Step 1. Projection.
The absolute first decision we had to make was which map projection to use. Here's the Mercator projection, which is one of the most widely used map projections and is truly atrocious. Consider Africa and Greenland. In the real world, Greenland is about 2 million square kilometers, while Africa is about 30 million square kilometers. That means 15 Greenlands should roughly cover Africa, and not the entire fucking world. Why is Mercator such a raging dumpster fire, you ask? Well, it's a conformal cylindrical projection, which I guess makes it easier to draw, assuming the best technology you have available to you is a cylinder and a lamp, but it's generally acknowledged that the Earth is not, in fact, a cylinder, despite what the flat-ish earthers would have you believe. Okay, then you've got Gall Peters, which preserves the proper area proportions but looks whack as hell. Then you've got the truly bizarre projections, your Hammer Retro Azimuthal, your Waterman Butterfly, your Dymaxion, and while I'm sure these projections have certain technical reasons for existing, we decided not to find out what it's like to raise a Dymaxion child. In summary, it turns out it's hard to project a sphere onto a plane. So, after considering many options, we eventually settled on the Robinson projection, which is widely regarded as
pretty good.
The relevant XKCD is also scarily accurate.
Step 2. Digital map.
Next was to make a digital map that we'd later trace onto the wall. This involved hundreds of tiny sub-steps, all of which will be cataloged now.
I found a good downloadable vector map in a Robinson projection, brought it into Adobe Illustrator, figured out which layers correspond to which countries, renamed and organized all those layers, colored all the country layers, found another downloadable map in the Robinson projection, this one a political map, wrote out each country name as its own text layer, sorted and positioned the text layers, cross-checked the full list of countries against the list of sovereign states on Wikipedia, made controversial choices about which countries count. More on that later. Created individual star layers for each country's capital city, repeated the text layer exercise with capital cities, other major cities, islands, bodies of water, and other geographical features, looked at which far-flung territories belong to which distant colonial power. At some point, apparently used a script called Name Preserver for reasons unknown. Spent a whole lot of time making a ton of really OCD level edits to borders because the two reference maps didn't quite match up. More on that later. Got constant dopamine hits every time borders clicked together. Ah, so satisfying.
Brushes border by hand for reasons I can't remember, and finally wrote another script to do something completely useless and in no way benefited
the end result. All that is to say, this file is now available on my website if you want to use it. Please, someone use it. Please.
Step 3. Design elements.
To decide on the map's design elements, I read some cartography blogs, a corner of the internet I found delightful, which recommended things like deciding on the intellectual hierarchy of the features of your map, using no more than 2 fonts, one serif and one sans serif. We use Trajan Pro 3 and Open Sans, labeling water features blue and in an italic font, and so on. This is also the step in which we finalize the fill colors for the countries, but more on that later.
Step 4. Room preparation.
Paint the room blue.
Step 5. Tracing.
The next step was to figure out how to trace the map onto the wall using a projector, bearing in mind that we would have to constantly reposition the projector to trace different parts of the world. This challenge could have been mitigated or even completely eliminated by just making a smaller map, but who wants to make a project easy when you can make it very, very hard? Actually, I initially envisioned an even bigger, complete 360-degree wraparound map, but quickly discovered that would require either horribly warped dimensions or major vertical renovations. Fortunately, it turned out the Robinson projection fit almost perfectly onto 2 adjacent walls using a scale of exactly 1 to 7,777,777 and 7/9, and we did make sure to sort of explain what happens at the edge of the world. So our solution was the purple circle method, a big grid of purple circles. We carefully measured and placed said purple circles on the wall and used them to roughly align the projector. It was never exactly perfect because 3D geometry is complicated, but close enough.
Step 6. Painting.
Finally, we get to the fun step, actually painting this thing. We used these acrylic paints and did at least 2 coats on each country, although some took a few more than 2 coats to get satisfactory. Russia!
But no country took more coats of paint than the most annoying country in the entire world. The country that everyone hates. You know the one. I'm talking, of course, about Canada.
In Canada. You have too many islands. You have way too much coastline. And if you think Russia has more coastline, you are incorrect. Canada has more than twice as much coastline as second place on the list, which is actually not Russia, but Norway? By the way, it's actually impossible to determine the exact length of coastline of a country because of the coastline paradox, which states that the measured length of a coastline depends on the length of the measuring stick, as seen here in two measurements of Britain's coastline, which differ by 1,000 kilometers, or 8% of its total. And if you continue decreasing the size of the measuring stick, and if you abstract the coastline to a mathematical object instead of an actual physical coastline, you can achieve infinite length.
Not only that, coastlines also exhibit fractal properties, which is super cool, and you should check out this Veritasium video for more info, but even though as a math teacher I'm suddenly very excited by coastline theory.
Now, the colors. People ask me about the colors. There's no special reason we picked these particular colors, but there is a special reason that there are exactly 4 colors.
One of my top 10 favorite math theorems, which is a sentence my grade 10s will be hearing 9 more times this semester, against their will, is the 4-color map theorem.
This theorem states that you never need more than 4 colors to color a map, and that goes for not just maps of the world or subregions within a country, but even any fictional theoretical map you could come up with, such as this one, which looks like a map of my brain after I've read too much about the 4-color map theorem. Sidebar, the Wikipedia page does provide several examples that break the theorem, but it requires you to live in a land of non-Euclidean geometry, which does not currently seem to be standard practice among sovereign states.
One reason I like the 4-color map theorem is that you can give it as a problem to students, even young students, and they can often get the right answer pretty quickly. And yet proving the theorem is immensely difficult.
To wit, there were several false proofs in the 1800s, and the theorem wasn't finally proven until 1976, which is crazy. Calculus was discovered so long ago that the guys who did it looked like this, and in the end the 4-color theorem was proven with the assistance of computers, and in fact was the first major math theorem proven with extensive computer assistance. Furthermore, the proof was rejected by the wider math community for some time before gradually earning acceptance, proving that when it comes to gatekeeping the kids with their fancy gizmos, mathematicians are no different than the rest of us. On another note, I love this passage from the Wikipedia article which states, "The theorem is not of particular interest to cartographers," which is actually also my favorite thing about mathematicians. Despite being curmudgeonly Luddites, they will spend literally hundreds of years proving a theorem relay style with no evidence that it will ever encounter a practical use, and you really gotta respect that.
Step 7. Outlining borders.
We used these black Posca paint pens. This step was pretty painless compared to the painting. Just look at how fast it zooms by at 20,000% speed.
Okay, now is a good time to talk about which countries count. This is a controversial decision, even if you think you're not being controversial about it. The reasons why are covered by the map men here.
For us, we mostly just tried to stay relatively neutral and decided to use the United Nations list of countries, but we also included a few other countries, which most countries agree are countries despite the objections of some other countries. In one case, I also relied on the template map to draw borders in Cyprus, which I later learned are part of an illegal occupation that is recognized by exactly one country, a mistake which led to my getting yelled at, lovingly, by more globally aware friends. This has now been fixed. Thanks, knowledgeable friends.
Step 8. Labeling.
We considered using a stencil to get the font perfect here, but somehow we're able to resist our natural inclination to make things as complicated as possible and just kept using the projector, which worked totally fine.
Step 9. Return projector that I borrowed from my sister for 2 years. Step 10. Have some fun with it.
Having grown up in London, mere blocks from the Thames River and Covent Garden Market, I felt it my responsibility to honor one of the great cities in the world with a special label. Oh, and this other city gets a special mention as well. We also included some of our favorite places from books, TV, and movies, and of course we're keeping the paint pens nearby for when the kids want to add their own special places to the map, real or fictional.
I once heard that you could figure out when a map was made to within a few years just by looking at where borders are, what countries are called, and so on, because the world is always changing. The beautiful thing about making your own map is it can be a living, breathing document reflecting the ever-changing nature of our world. And a child can grow up not just memorizing place names, but gaining a deeper understanding into the dynamism of people and cultures around the globe.